Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we're jumping into a beer from a brewer that it's been at least a year, possibly longer, since I've had one of their brews. They are not available to me in my local market, so I'm only able to get them from Tavour. And today's beer is from Ecliptic Brewing Company. We've had, I think, maybe one IPA from them, several very large, very impressive stouts over the years. But today, we're jumping into my favorite beer style, that is, of course, barley wine. This specific one is Bourbon Barrel Aged. The name of the beer is Bourbon Barrel Aged Orange Giant. This is batch number 5. This one clocks in at 15% ABV. Huge ABV even for a barley wine. Ecliptic is based in Portland, Oregon. So, as always, it's been a while. If you forgot, Ecliptic does this really cool kind of hologram foil thing on their labels. I don't know if the camera's going to pick it up, if it's going to show any of that kind of rainbow transition, but really, really cool. And it's just a keg barreling through space. So I expect this is going to be awesome. It's been a while since I've had a beer from them, and big bourbon barrel aged barley wine sounds like a great way to break the ice after so long. So let's get this poured. We're using our stout glass that we often use. Okay, pouring this one. This is a classic caramelly colored barley wine. If anything, maybe this is a little lighter than you typically see, but it's certainly right in the spectrum. It looks quite nice. This one really actually seemed to form a pretty nice head too. Now, it's very active in terms of carbonation. I can tell you that right now. There's a big rush of medium size and some smaller size bubbles rushing up, so I don't know how long that head's going to stick around. But what I can tell you is it does indeed, as you would expect, have a very pronounced aroma coming right out of the glass. Big bourbon barrel aged barley wine. So visually, beautiful, beautiful caramel color. Let's get right up on it. Oh yeah. Yeah, you can really smell the bourbon, that kind of vanilla and caramelized sugar kind of aroma. And this smells very much like classic barley wine. There are very, very big notes of toffee and caramel. And there was also a very big kind of fruity, it's kind of that cobbler or some kind of baked good with a lot of deep rich fruit. This one smells a lot more like kind of apricots, maybe mixed with plums, and less figgy than you typically get. And I'm not really picking up any kind of raisin or prune-like aromas, but it definitely smells kind of like baked good, rich, deep fruit. And of course that vanilla and kind of caramelized sugar accent coming from the bourbon barrel. But it smells absolutely fantastic. Head did settle down, but it's got nice cling, nice little pad floating on top. So far so good. Looks great. Let's jump in. Take one. Ooh, huge beer. Both the intensity of the flavor and the body and the mouthfeel. This is a big, big beer. It is heavy. It's 15% in a barrel-aged barley wine. You would expect it to be. It feels it. This beer has real substance. Very weighty when you swallow. Texturally, an absolute boatload of resistance. I wouldn't say this one feels syrupy, but it feels viscous. It's thick. Agitation on the palate, this one gets super fine, very, very creamy, velvet-like. It's an extremely nice, lush mouthfeel to go along with this big, heavy body. Flavor profile-wise, as soon as you swallow, it is front and center, whoosh of intensity, straight from the bourbon barrel. That's the first thing you get. And that intensity holds for a good several seconds before it slowly starts to dial back. And as it does, that's when the underlying character of the barley wine itself really starts to open up. Absolute ton of caramel and toffee notes. I smelled it. It's present in the flavor profile. And yes, there is this underpinning of rich, deep, kind of baked good fruit. And I gotta say, this barley wine, they don't always really did match the aroma. In the flavor profile, I'm very much getting kind of apricots and mixing with this caramelized sugar and the vanilla from the bourbon barrel. It really does take on this nice kind of baked good profile. So say you made a cobbler and you threw some vanilla cream on it, maybe some, I don't know, if you took like creme brulee sugars and caramelized it with a torch. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting with like bourbon. Maybe even you flambéed with some bourbon before you threw your cobbler in the oven. That's really what I'm getting here. It's very rich. It's very big and bold and pungent. The flavor intensity is massive. And it really, for my money, pairs extremely well with the fact that this is a 15% ABV beer and is very weighty and very resistant. So this feels like a substantive beer texturally, and you get it sensorily as well. Aroma and flavor. It's absolutely huge. So, a lot of complexity to this one. I'm going to jump back in for a second sip, let everything re-intensify, see if I pick up anything I may have missed on the first sip. Then we will talk about this finish, but what an absolutely tremendous barley wine. Been a long time Ecliptic. What a great beer to come back to after so long away. All right, take two. Oh, just that rush of bourbon. It's big, it just intensifies. Takes 3-4 seconds, then the barley wine really starts to open up. The underlying beer, very caramelly. This is a very caramelly and toffee-like beer. Indeed, I would say this is one of the more toffee flavor profiles I've had in a barley wine. It does have caramelization that's really more caramelized sugar, less kind of caramel or salted caramel or like little caramel cubes like you might use in cooking or just eat, but toffee. It's rich, it's buttery, it's dense, and it's pairing very well with these apricot notes. It's coming through quite clearly. It's just so good. And there's a lot about this beer that really does, when you taste it all together, and it takes about a good 10-15 seconds for all of the flavors to kind of mix, become apparent, and kind of just do their thing together before it really starts tasting like a baked cobbler or something like that. But when you finally get there, it is absolutely tremendous. This is a big beer. It's very dessert-like in its presentation. This is a long, slow sipping beer. This is not anything you're going to rush through. You're going to want to savor every last sip of this one, and slowly. 15% ABV, no need to rush it. It's just going to continue to open up with even greater depths as it warms further than British cellar temperature. But absolutely phenomenal. So, the finish on this one, it's very, very long. And it's really a bourbon forward, bourbon dominant driver on the end of the finish. It's very wet, still feels very full, and there is a boatload of intensity, and it's long. I mean, it's been what, a minute, maybe a minute and a half this sip. It is not letting that intensity of that bourbon go. And that is actually mixed with the very present toffee flavors that are coming from the malt bill, and it's absolutely delicious. This is a top tier barley wine, and I love it. I'm going to take my time, sip on this one, come up with my scores. When we come back, we'll get this beer ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Ecliptic Brewing Company's Bourbon Barrel Aged Orange Giant, specifically batch 5 of this beer. Bourbon Barrel Aged barley wine, clocking in at 15% ABV. Ecliptic Brewing is based in Portland, Oregon. So this was just a tremendous, tremendous barley wine. Very, very well done indeed. This was one of those beers that came close to a perfect score. Indeed, it only missed the mark by 1 point. One category where it did not get a perfect score was head and retention, but it only just missed it. This was so close to perfection across the board. It almost pains me, but I did have to dock 1 point there. It wasn't quite perfect. Head and retention, though, does get a 9 out of 10, which does leave a perfect 10 out of 10 for all remaining categories. That's aroma, taste, body, mouthfeel, finish, appearance, balance, feeling, and intangible. That's my subjective category. And example of style, which does, of course, bring the total score on Ecliptic Brewing Company's Bourbon Barrel Aged Orange Giant Batch 5 to a 99 out of 100. Guys, this barley wine was just about as close to perfection as it gets. I absolutely loved it. Huge, big, bold aromas, absolutely delicious, pungent flavors, tons of complexity, a lot more toffee forward than you often will find in a barley wine, and it absolutely worked with that bourbon barrel aging. This was top tier. I recommend this one to any barley wine fan. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just turn on your notifications, hit that bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.